Lorie Corcuera is a soul-centered entrepreneur on a mission to infuse love and connection in the sometimes rigid world of corporate cultures. She is the founder of Sparks Creation, a company that works to inspire purpose and human connection in the cultures of organizations by creating a mind shift in the way that they see their people. Lorie grew up in a loving family where her parents raised her with the gifts of compassion, love, and acceptance. A high achiever, she always reached the heights of success in whatever she pursued. But Lorie's success has been forged through the crucibles of struggle and pain. At the height of her career, she faced the bitter choice of leaving a marriage and starting on a completely new path. Feeling as if she was not living with the purpose she knew she had to fulfill, Lorie found herself at a crossroads in her life. Filled with uncertainty, yet propelled with courage, she decided to leave her high-caliber corporate position and followed her passion of creating a company that worked with people and creating their ideal lives. Today, Lorie is a successful entrepreneur and a thought leader that is changing how companies look at their employees. A beautiful person, both inside and out, Lorie is inspirational to all who seek to follow their hearts and turn their dreams into a reality. Lorie, thank you so much for coming here and sitting down with me and having this conversation with me. Yeah, thank you. How are you feeling, Lorie?
I'm good.
Yeah?
I'm feeling really good. Yeah,
Awesome,
I'm excited to share my story and to learn more about you and just to be a part of this.
Absolutely. And when I first heard about you through a friend, and he said that you should go and talk to this woman because she's doing some really good work. I looked you up and I realized, wow, this woman is doing some really good work. She's a soul-centered entrepreneur that's really focused on her mission. So
I like soul-centered. That's really cool. Right. I've never heard of that before.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I've heard of heart-centered, but not soul-centered.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to talk about, I want to know from your perspective. Tell us a little bit about, you're the creator of Sparks Creation. Tell us a little bit about what the company is. What do you do? And what's the mission of the company?
So Spark has evolved, as with lots of different companies from the beginning to where it is today. But what we're doing today in the corporate world is we're really reinstating love in the workplace. And, before, if you asked me 3 years ago, I probably would hesitate to say the word love, but that is exactly what people need now is love, connection, engagement, presence, empathy, all of that, all of those human-centered ways of being is what people want, not just the leaders, but the people within organizations. So that's basically what we're doing. We are a training and development organization, the kind of formal way of what we're doing in our business.
Right.
But it's really about reinstating love. It's elevating the life experience at work so that, when people are happy and engaged and feeling fulfilled, guess what? That's contagious. They could share that wonderful experience subconsciously or consciously with their families, with their partners, and with their children. They can inspire their children to be excited about what they can, look forward to.
That's amazing. So your work is really focused on companies changing their culture to incorporate more love within the organization.
That's right.
That's fantastic. That's so much of that is needed within companies, right? But what I hear you saying, I sense that as an entrepreneur, you had to go against the grain.
Yes.
To do this and to bring this to companies for them to really see the value. How do you find the courage and the motivation to keep going against the grain when I am sure you were facing major challenges, maybe even rejection? Tell us about that.
I'm still going through it. It's like an ongoing,
stops.
It never stops.
I
Like
agree.
the fact that, like we spoke earlier about vulnerability, it is a strength, but it's also still something that's new for everyone. Especially when you think about work, people are still, when they get out of their off the elevator or walk into the work, they feel the pressure of being a certain way. I'm going to be assertive, or I'm going to be a leader, or I'm going to be this type of person. And what we're hoping to encourage people is to have the courage to show up as their most authentic self. But that's not easy to do. Everyone has, and even when I use the word love, the reason why it's tricky is because we all have different relationships with love. Like we have a different relationships with failure or courage. It's one of those things that for us, I think it's an everyday thing. I can't say that every company is ready for what we're doing, but I'm confident to say that there are more and more people who are now more awake have the willingness to learn other ways of doing things. And those early adopters are the people that we work with.
Okay, so early adopters, and then you work with the early adopters and hope that the transition happens and it goes to other people, other companies, and that they start adopting what you're doing. That's kind of the aspiration?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, our previous saying before reinstating love in the workplace was about igniting one spark at a time. Right? I love that, so it's really about if I could connect with one person, whether it's a team member or a leader obviously would be the most effective because they're so influential. Everything starts from the top. But any human being, if we can connect with them in a meaningful way where they can see who they are and feel really good about themselves, starting with themselves, and then that is then contagious and feeds down to the rest of the people, because they're so passionate about the experience that they've had that they want to share with others. That's good for us. You know, it's one spark at a time, one individual, one company, but it's not even so much that we're thinking we want to, you know, change the whole like company, because I think that there's going to be different organizations that are doing well in the way that they do things. It's not going to always be for everyone, but we hope that whatever way they decide to lead their organization, they're always doing it from the most authentic place of who they are.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because change, the way I see it, has to be it has to be authentic, and for it to be authentic, it has to come from within.
Yes.
And I guess that's kind of how you help them see that change can come from here and it can be long lasting. Sure. And, you know, in a lot of these places, I mean, if you can associate change with the bottom line and make it more profitable, then that's really what they're looking for.
And it's a tricky thing, you know, with the work that we do. It's so intangible, you know, like love. Like, how do you measure love? How do you measure engagement? And we actually facilitated, or I've moderated a panel with my friend Antonio the other day, and we asked the panel speakers the same question, like, how do you measure the ROI of culture or the work that we do? And, you know, we're still doing traditional ways of just conducting engagement interviews and asking people what they think is important to themselves, which we do as well. But there might be other ways to really think about that, about how we can really measure the impact that we're having with people. So, you know, I don't think that there is an answer to that question yet. I do know that there's statistics around the cost of disengagement is on average about $4,500 per employee per year. Wow. So you think about it, if you got 100 people, like that, it starts to add up if you're not thinking about how to create the best experience for your people. So
right. So you're not just changing culture and making lives better, but you're actually making companies more efficient and more profitable at the same time.
Yeah, for us, it's about the people and the process as well. It's operational excellence but from the people side of it, right? It's people focused. Like, you can't just think about process and then automatically think everyone's going to do it. People need to understand why, and it has to be simple enough for them to get it, and then to actually integrate it that it becomes something habitual.
I agree. This very well said, Lorie, for sure. Lorie, do you see yourself as a trailblazer?
A trailblazer? I definitely think of myself as someone who is courageous and fearless, for sure. It's hard for me to say trailblazer because there's so many trailblazers out there that inspire me. And, you know, if I'm lucky enough to be one of those people, great. But I know there's so much more that I can do to even be considered a trailblazer. But I do know in myself that I'm not afraid to try something new. It takes, you know, there's some days where I still get fearful, but I'm all about choosing love and choosing courage and choosing, you know, a new way of doing things versus being stuck in an old way of thinking. Absolutely,
absolutely. And you touched on a really important point there, and that's courage. Courage to take that next step and really follow your passion, follow your dream. Yes. We were talking about your story before, Lorie, and you said, you know, you were in a position where you were in a comfortable place, you know, high-paying job, a place where you were wanted and needed for that position. To decide to leave that position and go into the road towards passion and to develop something like you've developed must have taken a lot of courage. And there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that stop dead in their tracks because of that fear. How did you manage it? How did you get over that?
You know, I tried to quit 3 times.
Okay,
And,
right.
you know, and it was hard the first 2 times to say no and actually leave, because I do care so much about people, and I cared so much about the people that I was working with. And every time I would think to leave, I would think that I'm leaving them and you know, they need me. And so I had to reframe my mindset that it's not so much that I'm saying no to them or leaving them behind, is that I'm saying yes to myself. I'm saying yes to what's important to me. And that is a very distinctive, you know, like there's a difference in that, because, you know, it's really hard to say no. It's really hard to even put yourself first in any situation. So I had to think about what was important to me, and I know that if I make the decision that's aligned with myself, then I'm going to show up as me. Otherwise, I'm going to be resentful or have regret or feel like it's obligation. It's the same thing with relationships, right? You can stay in a relationship because you feel like, you know what, it's the thing to do. I'm a mom, I have a child, I don't want to like break it up, or, you know, all these different things. But then what happens is that negative energy that you hold on to because you stayed, even though you're putting a happy smile on, your kids will feel that you're unhappy. My mom was unhappy for many, many years staying with my dad. And the reason why she left when I was 15 is because I said, Mom, we're going to be okay. But she would have stayed the whole time, been unhappy and settled.
Right.
You know this very true about relationships.
I do, and I can relate with that story, because so many of, you know, my people have had the same story, right? Especially in relationships. So I guess what you're saying is that if you compromise your real self, your authentic self, then you're not just doing a disservice to yourself, but you're also doing a disservice to others.
That's right.
And that's, I guess, when you think of it that way, like you said, very well said, then you can move in the direction of taking that courageous step. That's amazing.
And I think that part of me having the courage as well, we need to define your values and purpose.
Right.
And I know that a lot of people say that, and it's probably been overused. And I think that it's still, when I go to sessions and I say, how many of you in the audience know your core values? I still have maybe 5 or 10 hands out of 100 people. And then I say to them, my next question is, well, how many can you actually articulate those values in words?
Right.
And nobody would stand up or put their hand up. And here, that's the reality. I had to go through a life-changing experience for me to actually look inwards to say, well, wait a minute, is this all of my life? Is this all am I supposed to do anything else? We need to ask those questions now. We don't need to wait for something bad or transformational happen. We need to just get curious now. What is important to Ahmed? Like, what is important to you, so that you're making decisions that are aligned with you, so you feel good about it every day?
Absolutely. I'm listening to you talk about this, and I'm thinking, wow, you know, I need to do something like this. I need to define my values. And I have, to some extent, I think we all have. But what I'd love to know, Lorie, is what are your values, first of all? Would love to know your top 3 or top 5.
Sure.
And then how can people that haven't asked this question, what can they do to just get the process started in starting to understand their values a little more?
Right. So my core values are love, compassion, courage, respect, and fun. And every time I actually reevaluate my values, it's always the same.
Right.
And the way that we articulate those values in the sessions that we do, and I'm happy to share because we're an open book. I'm all about open source and whatever can help other people. Is you just have to. Well, we do it like with a kind of a coaching session, or we do it in group settings.
Right.
But if you were going to do it by yourself, is just to ask some real defining questions like, what makes you smile? Or what is one of your proudest moments in life? Or who inspires you and why? Or how do you want to be remembered? Like some of these big questions that we probably don't think about. What you'll start to see when you start to write your answers out, you start to see a theme.
Yes.
Because the interesting and fascinating thing about values is that it is innate and it's your essence. So no matter what you share with me, you're always speaking from your values.
Right.
So let's just do an example. Like if you and I went to, like, who's a favorite artist that you have? A music
like
artist.
Music artist?
Yeah.
Let's say Drake.
Drake, I know. Okay, everybody loves Drake, right? So say you and I went to the Drake concert,
right?
And then someone asked, how was that concert to you? And then they asked me how the concert. Right. I'm going to highlight the parts of the concert that are connected to my values.
Sure.
And so are you.
Right.
So that's how you start to see what's really important to the individual just by talking to them.
Mm-hmm. So in order to define your own values, I guess you just have to have a conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
An authentic, a real conversation.
Yes.
And then when the values do come up, not to be afraid of them. Because I think it's happened to me. I'll share a personal experience. When I've asked this question about my values, some of the values that came up, I was too scared to admit that they were my values.
Wow.
One of them is freedom. And to accept freedom as my value was kind of counterintuitive and almost like, I can't do this because of the way that my lifestyle is right now. So again, it fits right into courage and what you need to do to step out of that fearful place.
Yeah. The thing about the values too is even the word freedom.
Yes.
It depends on how you see the word freedom, right? What does it mean to you?
True.
Right? You could think, is freedom, I have all the resources and I can travel and have flexibility in my life? Or is it freedom of space, freedom of the mind, freedom to be myself?
And I gotta share this with you, Lorie. Every time I speak with entrepreneurs like yourself that are really living with passion, I see them so much more engaged.
Yes.
I see them so much more alive. And all the things that they have let go before that have kept them in that place of fear has given them a certain sense of emancipation that they could never experience before.
Yes.
And this is the very reason why I do this, because I want to highlight stories like yourself and to bring that out in front of people and show, hey, if you were to take that step of courage, this is what you would get to, right? So tell us, what are you celebrating in your life now after the struggles, the challenges? What's the thing that you're proudest of?
I think the thing that I'm most proud of is my love for myself, because I think the more you love yourself, the more confident you are, the more you feel you're enough, the more that you feel you are worthy. And that is the key to creating a successful business and to be an entrepreneur or to even find fulfillment. However you define success, right? A lot of people ask me, like, how there's this perception, and I don't know if it's just social media, but there is a perception that things are going really well with me and with Spark, and I have this life, and of course I post a lot of really positive things. I do post a lot of honest things as well, because I don't want it to just be happy moments. I want to show my vulnerability, but I also show that I'm going through something and how I'm getting through it. I'm not going to just complain and put some post up there, but I definitely want it to be something that's a learning opportunity. But I think that's really what it's about, is if people are feeling a little bit fearful, or they're feeling things are not moving fast enough, or they're worried about money, or worried about not getting enough clients, if they believe in who they are truly and love themselves at a subconscious level, it will attract, it will manifest. And I feel the reason why we're in a good place is because I'm not worried about it anymore. I'm not really worried about getting clients. I'm not worried about money or any of those things that I used to be worried about. I changed my relationship with those things. I let it go, and I just trust completely that everything is coming. Like, it's just we're gonna be okay.
We're gonna be okay. So it has a lot to do with faith.
Yeah, it does
Being
have a lot of
faithful.
faith. Yes,
And
and I wonder, is that a consistent theme for the entrepreneurs? Is that there's a lot of faith in them?
Well, there's a lot of faith that they have, but a lot of times they quit because they can't find the faith, right? Because faith is not in abundance, I suppose, and you can't. Sometimes you have to surrender to create abundance, and I think that's the challenge. And if someone is watching this right now and looking at you and saying, I'm inspired by Lorie and what she's doing, what advice would you have for them to go out there and pursue what they want to do? What would you tell them?
I would say first, define your values and your purpose, right? And even create a vision for yourself. So you have a place of, like a starting place of who you are, so you know exactly what it is. Because we could easily get distracted by many things, positive or negative. But if you know who you are, then you're really grounded in that. And I think also just keep moving. Just keep taking action steps. So even if, because I don't believe there's such thing as failure. And I think that's why I'm fearless, is because I've gone through so many of these hard moments and kept moving, kept trying. And okay, well, that didn't work. Try something else. That's the thing about being an entrepreneur, is that there's no such thing as failure. The fear is for me is not trying and missing out on what's possible.
Right.
I just see the world has so much to give. I'm even the kind of person that if there was another coach or another person who's doing similar work, I don't believe in competition. I don't even use the word competition. I just see that is one individual that has a similar passion as me, and we're doing same things. Wow, why don't we work together? And or I share their work, because there might be someone else that connects with them. I can't expect, that every 7 billion people to connect with me. And there's so much more, and we need to work together.
That's awesome. Really well said. Great advice. I'm sure the people that are listening to this are not only getting inspired, but also getting that tidbit knowledge of, the golden nuggets of, okay, this is what I can do to move in the direction that I want. Lorie, I can't thank you enough for coming out here and sitting down with me to have this conversation. I really learned something from you today, and you've inspired me to keep going.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Lorie.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, these interviews that I do, every time I do them, they inspire me, they fill me up with joy, and this one was no different. I think like Lorie was saying, it's really about courage. It seems that the theme is courage, and to go out there and pursue the dreams that you have in your mind and to make them a reality. But the first step that is always required is courage and moving in the direction of courage. But sometimes courage requires faith and to let go of, what you don't have, and to allow yourself to have that abundance that you want to create through faith. So I hope you enjoyed this interview. Until I see you again next time, have a great one, my friend.